Thanks for watching D2 Wrenchworks and DIY. In today's video, we are getting into one of the most popular Treks that you could get on a budget, dating back to the 80s, and that is the Trek 1000, as you can see here. We are going to take this plethora of parts here. I have a whole build sheet ready to go. This is about 2 weeks in the making. I'm going to go a little deeper than I really planned to go, but I think it's going to work out excellent because we are going to end up making what I would call the ultimate Trek 1000. Something that we could commute in, something that we could compete in, something we could throw a rear bike rack onto and go carry some groceries home. Let's get into it. Alright, first things first about the Trek 1000. I want to start with what we have here. As you can see, I have a plethora of parts. We will be rebuilding this. Obviously, that goes without saying, but I don't want to just throw all these parts on and make a video about that. There's a whole lot of good things about this bike that we could talk about without touching a single one of these parts. So, first things first, the way this thing sits bone stock, you can absolutely do anything you want to with it. One of my favorite things has a rear bike rack on it. The frame will fit wider tires. I'm not so sure. I have a tire test. These are some of the biggest 28Cs you can get in the market. So, what are they? Continental Ultra Sports. So, if these will fit on there, which I will check later, that is a great sign. Sometimes on these early 2000s frames, they'll have like a brake bridge rub or something like that because these Continentals are so tall. But we'll check. It has 25s on it now. I know it'll fit most 28Cs for sure because I've done it before, but that's kind of the ultimate test with those big boy tires. So we'll get into that shortly. The next thing is you could take this if you wanted to be a beginning person that likes to get a bike they want to commute on and something you could possibly race on, a little all-in-one situation. You could definitely do that. This is a bike that the way it sits right now, no pedals, of course. I always try to weigh things without the pedals because it takes a little bit of guesswork out of what yours might weigh, but 22 pounds and 4 ounces, the way this thing sits. There is no carbon fork on this bike. You don't need carbon to have a super lightweight bike. The frame has tons of work into like generationally moving this. The original Trek 1000 is from the 80s. So even though this is only early 2000s and you think probably technology wasn't that great, it's actually really starting to expand. And even just your basic aluminum frames like this with an aluminum fork, and even crazier, it has a chromoly steel steerer because the only bad thing is they can be a little stiff. If you're a heavier rider like me, you're going to feel it. That's why I like to do the wide tires. That'll really dampen and cushion all of that for you. You'll be able to ride some lower pressures. Things that will really help with the ride, but the chromoly steerer is really supposed to help with the dampening. Not nearly as much as a carbon fork, and the good news is this has a 1 1/8 inch head tube, so your standard, anything that's up on your newer bikes, it'll fit right on there, no problem whatsoever. You could get those usual carbon forks, $75 like that from other Treks takeoff. So that would be a great addition. The way it sits, like I said, 22 pounds, 4 ounces. You can't really complain, and it could be very, very competitive. Now, one of my favorite things, they don't get much love in the bicycling world, but the Shimano Sora 2300 group set. We have the rear derailleur, the front derailleur, and the shifters, all one entire unit there. For the brakes, they're kind of like a Tektro kind of generic dual pivot brake. You see this all the time on these. Cannondale has like actually their own brand. Now, later on in the years, Trek has their own in-house as well, Cane Creek. But I digress on all of that. The only bad thing about this group, the front derailleur, it stinks. It's not very good, especially on these smaller frames. Should have mentioned, this is a 52 centimeter frame, so the weight is relevant based on the frame size, of course. But you almost always have on not just completely cross-training where you would be the smallest on the crank and then the smallest on the cassette, but when you could go like the second smallest, sometimes the third smallest, depending on how small the frame is. And that point, that's unacceptable cross-training. You should really only have it small to small or big to big. That's really about the only time it's acceptable to have it. People hate triples because they can be so like kind of a pain to mess with, and honestly, I swear it's because of these freaking derailleurs. This whole early 2000s to mid 2000s generation, this Sora group set has lived forever. So the one thing I always do, and this is the first thing we're going to do, we will be upgrading with a Polaris front derailleur. This is a huge improvement, a triple as well, just much better tech all overall. I don't know what it is, something the backing plate has more space or whatever it is, but great. It's a great addition to the group set here because we want to have everything nice and smooth. You want to make it perfectly reliable. Like I said, you want to be able to do anything you can on this bike with no issues. One cool little hidden gem about this bike, the crank set. This is actually kind of rare, or very rare, I would say. It's apparently a patent infringement. I'm not a lawyer or anything, but this is SR Suntour Superb, and although you might say, no, I just Googled it and there's a bunch of these. Well, not this Superb that's 8-speed. They actually made a change later on, and you only see this very briefly on like 1 or 2 years of Trek 2000's, but this has 1, 2, 3, 4 arms. The 5th arm is actually just the crank there. As you can see, it's kind of hidden. There's obviously the 5th bolt right there. It exists, but this is a Campanola design, so obviously patent, some kind of trademark or something. Apparently they went after Suntour and they were like, hey, that looks just like ours and you better stop making them, and they did. So kind of cool. I want to see how this weighs, just because of the rarity, you know. On a older bike like this, nobody really appreciates funky stuff like that, so I will be taking that. And I actually have a perfectly matched and a little cooler, if you ask me, because we're going to stick with the theme. This has black with silver and blue. We have the blue wheels. The saddle was even blue bar tape. You get what I'm going at here, though. But the rest of the stuff, I want to make black to kind of go with it, you know? So I got some black components, this Sora crank set being one of them. I want to see the weight difference. I'm kind of curious to see if that will make any difference at all. It very well might be almost identical, but either one, doesn't matter. The most important thing is you want to have a 3-piece crank. It doesn't really matter if it's an Amazon one. It doesn't matter if it's Shimano. Usually 3-piece crank is 3-piece crank. They're all pretty good. Anything past that, you're just really losing weight. Like, it would be great to put an Ultegra crank on here, but if you did that, it would almost be cheaper to switch to a double, because triple cranks and the higher end, where they get light, they're expensive, so they're very rare. So moving on, all of this stuff I'm very pleased with. Some cool things too. It did have a lot of maintenance. Well, a lot, but I wouldn't say a lot. It has important maintenance, like the bottom bracket. If you don't have a mechanical background, that can be kind of a pain to get out and a little costly. It's cheap for the actual cartridge. They're very affordable, like $25. And there's some Swiss stop brake pads already in here, which are a great upgrade, because at this age, if they haven't been replaced, you're going to absolutely want new pads. Because even in the early 2000s, when this thing's brand new, the pads are not very bitey. Of course, the saddle's a little beat up. We're going to get rid of that. I got a whole bunch of other goodies to match the outlook of the frame there with some silver and blue. All right, enough rambling about all of the parts here. The tech talk isn't quite as fun unless we actually see some work done. Am I right? Let's get to work. First things first. Take this wheel out so I can give you a little better demonstration here. But this headset has a lot of movement. Apparently, at some point, the previous owner had done some work to it and he lost pieces, and you could always tell, because let's see if I can make this easy to see. You should be able to see the bottom here is moving a lot. There should be no movement, so that is bad. And I might have a piece to fix it, but to tell you the truth, this is kind of an economy-based one. It's not very high-end. And I have a titanium airborne that I just recently rebuilt, and this one is not only just overall higher quality and much nicer, but we have sealed bearings on the inside that are just much easier to replace because they're cartridge style. So that is a big upgrade, and that's something we'll be doing next year. So these are the top and bottom races, and this is pretty much all that's in these cups right here. This drop in, they have some little, this is supposed to be a dust seal on the bottom for the fork. It has similar stuff up top. A conical shaped dust seal up top with a little tightener that's supposed to center it. This little plastic guy there. Honestly, everything's there. Surprisingly. It just wasn't tightened correctly, so honestly I could grease this and put it all back together, but like I said, I'd rather have a nicer headset in there. It's to even get it in to where you need to maintain it, you have to take it all apart anyways, so you might as well just go ahead and do the right thing. I have the parts sitting around where at no major loss or anything, you know, we're only going to make the bike better by doing this, so take the extra moment and do it right. Gloves on so we don't get a complete mess all over ourselves here. I'm going to be taking off the cable housings, the cables, all of this, going to be all brand new stuff as I mentioned earlier. So to do this, hammering the cups out of the way, it's just easier to cut them, get it out of the way, put the bars to the side. If you don't need to do this and you're only going to be doing a headset, I would just probably tie it up here on the top tube somewhere, or I use Velcro straps a lot, so good tip there. Alright, next, you're going to need the headset press, of course, our hammer, and lastly, our cup remover tool. Just shove this guy down in there. You feel with your finger it's touching all the spots it's supposed to be. I like to hold my finger in there for the first couple of hits. Yeah, perfect. Comes right out. What I like to do is basically when I'm holding it in there, you want to just try to make sure you're keeping your finger, you see my gloves here, flush against the lip here so it doesn't pop through and chip your headset or cut your finger. Now for the top one. Now that part is just so it doesn't go flying up over your head there. So be careful with your fingers, but try not to make a mess of your house with greasy parts. Now I got a tiny, tiny, tiny smidgen of Lucas grease here, and I like to just give it a little, literally just a film. You don't even really want, it's going to force its way through anyways and push it out of the way. The headset cups will, because they're made with that interference fit, but just for the sake of sweat, and you don't want aluminum corroding to the frame. Even though it's aluminum on aluminum, it could still happen when you just sweat and you don't wash the bike. Just always beneficial to put a little grease on there. Alright, I got my bottom cup all unloaded here. Get ready to set it in. I'm going to try to center it the best I can with this little logo here. Make it look nice and pretty. Alright, so time to put the top one in now. Same thing, just try to center it up the best we can. As you can see here, we hammered off the old race, which is next step. Obviously, put the new one on. Alright, so first thing I like to do when I get the frame stripped down like this, I want to go ahead and just scrub it down. Everything's out of the way. You can get all the hidden dirt and all the nooks and crannies, so go ahead and get that done first. Alright, as you can see here, we got this thing shined up. It looks excellent. The orange is just sparkling. Now we got to just finish it up, putting on our whole front end setup here, which is where it gets a little complicated, a little convoluted, but nothing too complicated we can't handle, of course. Our headset here, one of the best things you want to do is get sealed bearings, of course. This is pretty much the easiest setup you can get. You just saw how easy they just pop right out. You could just put a new one in seconds. No having to pack grease, no having to get mess everywhere. Nice modern upgrade for sure. It's a very high quality FSA headset. But the problem is, with this frame being in the early 2000s, it is kind of like in the middle. I was positive that this is a 1 1/8, like I see on all of these Trek 1000s, but weirdly, I buy these a lot. These Trek 1000s are great bikes, but this is the first one I've seen with a 1-inch steerer. And the trick is, here it is. Oh, so the trick they did here is you just put a spacer right onto it, a shim, and then your new 1 1/8 stem slides right over, and nobody will know the difference that you only have a 1-inch threadless steerer. The complicated part, though, is this bike has 34mm cups. It is very hard to find a 1-inch headset that has 34mm cups. They are all almost 30mm by default. So the Cane Creek setup I have in this bike is kind of custom. It's going to be a pain in the ass to replace it. I'm going to be straight up honest with you. I would not want to deal with it if I were you. One of my favorite things to do on bikes like this is future-proof it. It doesn't matter if it's like the best of the best modification or if it's a dirt cheap upgrade. It doesn't matter to me. It's more about the future ability of having to deal with maintenance or upgrades, things like that. So this is why this headset is going to stay in here, and we are going to put in a 1 1/8 inch carbon fiber fork. You could tell this thing dampens way better. Just by riding it the first time, you will notice an immense difference between the harsh aluminum forks and our carbon fiber ones. Now, because we do have a larger steer up here, the weight is actually dead even. This is a pretty good fork for its weight, but also it is a little smaller. If this is a 1 1/8 inch steel steer, it would be quite heavy. So you save a little weight here. This thing is pretty good for a stock bike. If you didn't want to replace it, you could leave it as it is and keep rocking your headset and hope you don't have to replace it anytime soon. That's pretty much the only other option you have. I will not be doing that, so get that out of here. This bad boy will dampen great. It will be, not just a higher quality ride, but we have a slightly more aggressive rake. This is only a few degrees difference, and the old one with the big sway to the bottom, that helps absorb a lot of harsh roads. It gives it a little bit of ability to move to help dampen because aluminum isn't that good. It's very stiff, as is the frame. So this is an excellent upgrade if you ask me. On top of the headset, future-proof, it looks good, and it's going to give you a much better ride. So let's install this and get onto the group set. If you want to support the channel, please do. You could find us over at Patreon. You can also find us on YouTube memberships where we have 2 different types and you can support us there. I'd greatly appreciate it if you did. Thanks.